Hello and welcome back to Round on the Bike. We're not in a base camp today. We're at my dad's house in Skirö in Millebo in Sweden. So what am I doing here? Yeah, well, I'm just waiting to go to Stockholm to the UK embassy and do some hoop jumping for my UK visa. And yeah, it's a nightmare, but thanks Brexit. Anyway, so some of you might know that before I came back to Sweden and started doing this Round on the Bike thing, I was working as a scuba diving instructor in the Red Sea for almost 15 years. So while I was doing this, I also had an online magazine called The Equalizer. And in this Equalizer magazine, I once published an article about rehydration and dehydration. And this one has later on been in a slightly revised version, published also in Traverse magazine, which is an adventure motorbike magazine in Australia. And lately I have had, for some reason, a couple of requests to talk about this topic, dehydration and rehydration, and yeah, for sure, if you're too lazy to go and find the article and read it yourself, I will make an episode and talk about it, because this is important. I've been dehydrated when I've been out riding, and it's not fun at all. It can be a nightmare. And the thing with dehydration and rehydration is that there are so many myths and facts about dehydration and rehydration. And fellow riders will for sure tell you one or more of those facts. And it's all well intended, but unfortunately not always well researched. I know this because up to the point where I started to do the research for writing this article, I was indeed one of those that would tell you with a confident smirk on my face those truths about dehydration. I have now done my homework, and the smirk has been wiped off my face, and here I will try to straighten out some of the question marks. So, chemical reactions in our tissues and cells require water, and water keeps the tissue flexible. Water is also needed for blood production and circulation through the cardiovascular system. In short, staying hydrated is crucial. The human body is about 60% water in an adult male and 55% water in a female. So, if you take a man weighing in on 90 kilos, he is 54.5 liters of water. Most of this water is contained within the cells of the body, or the intracellular space. The rest is what is referred to as extracellular space, which consists of blood vessels, intravascular space, and the spaces between the cells, interstitial space. None of these spaces can be filled from surrounding environments. We need to drink to stay hydrated. And dehydration sets in when a person has lost about 2% of his or her body weight. So for the man we were talking about before, weighing in on 90 kilos, that means losing 1.8 liters of water. The first symptoms of dehydration include thirst, darker urine, and decreased urine production. In fact, urine color is one of the best indicators of a person's hydration level. Clear urine means you're well hydrated, and darker urine means you need to hydrate. You are dehydrated. You can also tell that you are on the way to become dehydrated if you start getting more cramps in your muscles, you have a dry mouth, fatigue, lack of tears when crying, weakness and pain in muscles, headache, lightheadedness, and in more severe cases, you will probably see a lack of sweating, sunken eyes, wrinkled dry skin, low blood pressure, increase of heartbeat, fever, delirium, and unconsciousness. We lose fluids through sweat and urination, but also breathing causes loss of water. You can see this when breathing heavily in your helmet, the inside of your visor becomes foggy because you exhale moisture with air. It's also obvious that in hot and dry climates, where motorcycle riders like to be. You sweat more, and hence you increase the need of water. Some riders might claim that as soon as they get into the riding gear, they feel that they have to go to the toilet. But that might be of more psychological nature. Lowered concentration of fluids in the blood can be hazardous for a motorcycle rider. Dehydrated muscle tissues result in reduced blood flow, which affects the capacity to function. Lowered blood flow also makes the heart pump faster, and you will reach exhaustion much more quickly. This may, in good conditions, ruin the pleasure of your ride, and you may have to go home earlier than planned. In bad conditions, this may cause stress levels to rise to a point where a small problem can increase to a dangerous situation. A situation that you might be able to get out of if you don't get cramp. You have probably heard that drinking coffee and tea causes dehydration, but recent studies from the UK suggest that this is not true. One of the study researchers, Dr. Carrie Ruxton, says, and I quote, "Studies on caffeine have found that very high doses dehydrate, and everyone assumes that caffeine-containing beverages dehydrate. But even if you had a really strong cup of tea or coffee, which is quite hard to make, you would still have a net gain of fluid." May I also add that the human body is very efficient in extracting water from liquids we consume. Also, based upon the same research, the diuretic effect of caffeine actually decreases when people become used to caffeine. Another misconception is that soft drinks are causing dehydration. One reason would be that it contains caffeine, which would then have a diuretic effect. Another explanation would be the amount of sugar in a soda, and that your body would use more water to burn this sugar than you gain from the drink itself. Both of those are untrue. While soda is not as good at hydrating you as sport drinks or plain water, it still supplies more water to your system than it removes, so it does not cause dehydration. The most common liquids that people drink that actually causes dehydration, yes, alcohol. Strong spirits like vodka, whiskey, gin, rum will cause major dehydration. Beer and wine are mostly water, being about 6% alcohol and 94% water. Many think that even if it's a poor hydration source, it won't dehydrate you either. This is, however, wrong. Alcohol does diminish the production of ADH, antidiuretic hormone, the hormone that tells the kidney to reabsorb water during filtration. This gives the signal as if there was too low osmotic pressure in the blood, which triggers a silence of ADH, leading to creation of excessive volumes of urine. Have you ever heard that you can drink too much water? Well, people with various health conditions like heart conditions or high blood pressure can risk complications if they drink too much water. Same thing if you have had a kidney transplant. Other than that, it's not possible to drink too much water. Diarrhea is one of the most common reasons to rapidly lose large amount of water. On a motorcycle holiday to an exotic location with exotic food culture, an upset belly is not unusual, and you can lose a lot of water with each bowel movement. Vomiting is also a cause of fluid loss, and it might be really tricky to replace the water by drinking if you can't hold anything down. So how do we manage to stay hydrated? How do you know if you're drinking enough water? Some say there is only one way to know. If you're not thirsty, your fluids intakes are likely to be spot on, and that might be true if you're a dog. The human body is not that good with estimating thirst. When you sweat, you lose considerable amount of water, which means that blood becomes more concentrated. This triggers your thirst mechanism. However, by the time you feel thirsty, you might already lost up to 1% of your body weight. On a motorcycle holiday, there are many distractions, so feeling thirst is not prio uno. So what is the right amount of water you should drink every day then? Dehydration happens quickly, and hydration doesn't happen with one glass of water. Keep replacing your fluids as you lose them, especially if you're sweating in the sun on a bumpy gravel road. During activities like riding and being in the sun, you might need to restore the sodium lost in sweat as well. Sport drinks then supply water, sugar and electrolytes, including sodium, and have the tendency to encourage drinking because of their taste, which is not always the same with water. You have probably heard that sport drinks are full of sugar and it's a bad source of hydration. Yes, it is true that some energy drinks contain high levels of sugar, but sport drinks are actually designed to keep you hydrated and electrolytical balance. So there we have it. Well-known facts out the window. I set out to prove that what I said was correct and ended up learning that much of it was wrong. In the end of the day, one of the facts we all know is that dehydration is a contributing factor that increases the risk of getting you into an accident. Hopefully this has been helpful, and stay hydrated. Let's finish with a quote from Mark Twain. Water taken in moderation cannot hurt anyone.